Call Village Board North Fond du Lac meeting to order Monday, August 20th, 2018. Audience members are requested to sign in on the sheet provided at the registration table. Citizens wishing to be heard on topics not listed on the agenda may speak under item C. Citizens may be given an opportunity to speak during discussion of items listed on the agenda and are allowed 3 minutes for comments. Disruptive discussion or profanity will not be allowed. Roll call of officers.
King,
Here.
Price,
Here.
Streeter,
Here.
Stutz,
Here.
Will.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Citizen participation. Citizens are to address the board only. Statements are limited to 3 minutes. The board may not respond to items not listed on the agenda. However, you may ask for an item to be placed on a future agenda. Any citizens wishing to be heard? All righty. Any announcements, communications? Moving down to President's business and staff reports. Number 1, employee recognition. Pete, if you want to step up to the podium, please. We have a certificate of appreciation awarded to Peter Fetters with sincere appreciation for 15 years of service to the Village of North Fond du Lac, awarded this 18th of August 2018.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Library, Heather?
Thank you. I'll just be reporting on our summer reading program, and we concluded the program Libraries Rock, and we ended it with a pool party. And this year we had 307 registrations, which is a little bit over last year's number for children. And our teen and adult were pretty consistent. We had a few less, 4 less teens, but 17 more adults that registered. The minutes read for the teen and adult were a lot higher this year than they've been in the past, so we had a lot better participation from those groups. So we're happy about that. All in all, we had 581 total registrations, and so that includes the school-age kids, the teen, and adult. And during the time of our summer reading program, we opened up 121 new library cards. May we had 47, June 46, and July 28. So we're happy with that. So all in all, we also had about 1,619 children that were participated in our programming this year. So we're really happy about that. And I don't know if you remember from a few years ago, I kind of gave a spreadsheet of some of the registrations through the years that we had. And so, like, for instance, in 2005, we had 108 children that were registered. And like I said, that's in contrast to the 307 that we had this year. So I can give you a chart, but basically they've gone up. When I came on, we were at 146. And so we're really proud that we're getting good participation numbers, and we hope to see even more kids keep participating in the programs in the future. So one other item, I sent out the minutes from the last meeting. The library board did vote to increase my hours from 37 to 40, and also the library aide from 39 to 40. So if anybody wants a hard copy of that, I'm happy to give you that as well. So we're just getting ready now for some fall programs. We have, in November, we will have a group paint again. So if anybody's interested, they should contact us as soon as you see any advertising for that, because they fill up. So I guess that is all I have to
Thank you,
tonight.
Heather. Is everybody getting the agendas and the minutes from the library?
I'm
Is that-
fine.
Everybody find that helpful? I hope.
Yeah.
Especially the new board members, so thank you for sending that out. And Jackie, thank you for getting the minutes out so quickly. Appreciate that. Lakeside Municipal Court. Sure. You can come up by Darren's spot if you like.
I don't really have much of anything. I started working on the budget this week, and I'll be meeting with Nick next Wednesday, I believe. And that's
Okay.
all I've got today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Administrator.
Thank you. We're in budget season now, so it's a lot of work on the budget that consumes a lot of the week. I did attend a Plan Commission meeting last Tuesday. We approved an extraterritorial CSM. Also, last Tuesday was a long day. We had the election, obviously. We had 712 voters. It went very smooth, thanks to Lori and all the poll workers. It was a long day. They put in those long hours, but everything went very well. So thanks to all of them for putting in that time. Also, I've been meeting with insurance carriers for all different types of insurance, trying to pull together all those budget numbers, and we're actually talking about a lot of our insurance, our employee insurances tonight. I've also been meeting with our IT people to try and figure out our budget numbers for next year, but there's a common theme here. Everything's related to the budget for 2019, so a lot of meetings involved with that, along with meeting with the staff. That's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Police Department, Darren.
Thank you. I passed around monthly reports for both June and July because I wasn't here last meeting to get you the June report, so those are there if you have any questions on those. Also, this past week, as I put in my weekly report, we received a couple of donations. The first one was from Ty, Elliott, Caden, and Alexander at Friendship Learning Center. Those 4 students participated in the National Lemonade Day and decided to share their profits with the PD. So we got a check from them for $80. We're obviously very grateful to them for their support and want to congratulate them on their success on Lemonade Day. We also received a $500 donation from the North Fond du Lac Optimist. That money is to be used for the DARE program. The Optimists are one of our primary supporters and sponsors of the DARE program. Since its inception at this department, they have annually supported us and helped to fund that program, which is huge because, as I think you all know, that program is run solely on donations. The costs associated with the workbooks and the materials that are required, all of that is purchased through donations and not part of the annual village budget. Thursday, we completed our annual summer training, firearms training as a department. Spring and fall, we kind of focus on the state requirements and qualifications. In the summer program, we spent a little bit of time working on more of a tactical shoot. So we were utilizing equipment and tactics that we don't often get to train, and just making sure that people are ready in case it's necessary. And then obviously, I've spent a lot of time working on the budget. I'll be presenting on that later tonight. That's all I have.
Thanks, Darren. Fire EMS, Jake.
Thanks. Just wanted to remind the public that we are doing the Stop the Bleed campaign. We've had multiple trainings throughout Fond du Lac County now, and if anybody wants to have a training at their facility, whether it's a business, church, school, anything like that, we're more than willing to help out. You can email stopthebleed@ssmhealth.com, and they'll be able to help you up and set that up. Today we're actually at the Fond du Lac YMCA and trained about 50 of their staff members. We will be out by the schools this first week of school with the engines. Make sure people are slowing down for the kids that are walking across the streets and whatnot. So be cognizant of those areas. And yesterday we went out to Van Dyne for the small town parade. So we had 3 vehicles out there.
Nice.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
Moving down to the consent agenda. Approve the following minutes from the village board meeting 8/6/2018, and approve and authorize checks to be drawn in respective funds. General fund, $20,749.97. Library fund, $1,001.26. EMS fund, $3,627.84. Capital projects, $29,087.76. Water department, $2,492.22. Wastewater department, $4,760.45. Community Development Authority TIF, $1,104. Stormwater fund, $197.97 or 92 cents. For a grand total of $63,021.42. What is your pleasure?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Will, second by King, to approve the consent agenda. Is there any questions on anything? Mike?
Yes, I'm just gonna ask, I mean, I see you purchase a new vehicle, must be for, I would say, the water department out here. It was a local vendor, which I'm happy to see, and I didn't know always the case, so I don't know if they're more competitive in,
Well, I think, is it the Holiday?
yes.
Yeah, it's a combined shared truck probably throughout the departments. And I think now that they have all different, they have Chevy, GMC,
Yep.
Ford, they have a Ford dealership. I think that's probably why part of it's a little more competitive now, because that was always the difference, was GMC versus Ford was usually the case, and now that they have the Ford locally.
They're good community partners, it's nice to see we
Yep.
can give a little bit back,
Yep.
so, thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? All in favor to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. If the board doesn't mind, we're going to move up the resolution from item H up to, at this point. So we're going to discuss possible action on approving Resolution 9-2018, preliminary resolution declaring intent to levy special assessment for Bradley Avenue and Alpine Circle.
I can give a quick summary of that. That is, as we're all aware, that road up there, the developer had not completed his part of the contract in finishing the road, so we decided to do a special assessment on it, moving forward with that special assessment based on our police powers to do so. And this is a preliminary resolution for us to move forward with that. We do have a signed document with him guaranteeing, we already have the money for the, if you recall, there's already 4 homes that are out there. They are going to get assessed, those 4 homes, but we do have the money sitting in our account already from him for that assessment, so those homeowners won't have to pay for it. And this is the resolution just to move forward with the special assessment process. It's just part of the legal process. So this is the, basically, we're putting in curb and gutter and the street, and that work we'll talk about later here. We have a contract to approve later on tonight for that work.
And so we've been dealing with this for quite a while, and now.
Years, yes.
Okay, good. Mike?
I guess I'm curious why this was moved up the agenda.
Because they wanted to do it before the contract.
Okay, I was wondering if why the contract, was, you're assuming that's passing, though, right?
Well, no, this needs to be done first. All this is doing is, the village board is saying, expressing that we are going to exercise our police powers and assess this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Get a motion to approve Resolution 9-2018.
I'll make that motion to approve Resolution 9, 2018.
I'll second. I got a motion by King, second by Streeter to approve Resolution 9-2018, preliminary resolution declaring intent to levy special assessment for Bradley Avenue and Alpine Circle. Any other discussion or questions, comments?
I guess one more question. Those 4 residents, I mean, they're aware of this, and
Yep.
again, they've already paid theirs, right?
Well, they haven't, but we have the money, but about 2-3 months ago, when we actually got this contract signed,
Yep.
when I say contract, it was more of an agreement between us and the developer. I sent out a letter to all of them explaining the process. Some of them reached out to me, and then again, they got another mailing about this last week. So they're all well aware of it.
They're all good, huh?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion, comments, questions? All in favor of approving Resolution 9-2018, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Resolution is passed. Moving on to administrative. Number 1, discussion and possible action on approving insurance contracts effective October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019.
And Sarah Beth is here from McClone to present those. We've been in contact with her, met with her a couple times. We've gone through the process of going to market. She can explain that better than I can.
Wherever you're more comfortable.
Is that microphone working?
Yeah, why don't you, if you don't mind, you could sit down.
Yeah.
So we did go to market. We did what we call form fire, and all of the employees were required to fill it out, and we kind of went out to market to see what we could get for insurance rates, and Sarah Beth is here to show us what we got.
It's good to see you guys again.
Nice to
New
see you.
faces. So I don't have as good of news for you as what I've had in prior years. So I'm going to start out by talking to you a little bit about the history since I started working with the village. So I started working with you guys in 2014. That year we were with Network Health Plan, and the increase was 3.39%. Then ACA happened, and we had to change renewal dates to October, and I'm going to spare you the drama on all of that. But the renewal date changed to October 1st in 2015. Network Health came in with a 10.7% increase, which the village accepted. 10/1 of 2016, Network Health gave a renewal of 14%, and that was the year that we moved to United Healthcare, and we ended up having a decrease of 5.2% over the current rates. Then, 10/1 of 2017, United Healthcare came in with a 24% increase, which, again, we went to market at that point in time, and we moved back to Network Health, and we were able to get a 1% decrease. And then we were also able to get a rate cap for this renewal of 15%, okay? Network Health is probably the only carrier I can think of that for a group of your size, because relatively speaking, you're still a pretty small group for them, that they would come out with any offer on a rate cap. So the fact you got anything, I think, is really good. So this year, when Network calculated your renewal, it came in at 39%, but you have a rate cap of 15. So I knew about it, and again, because of the size, I know very little about what would be going on within a group. More than anything, I tried to just talk to them to validate whether or not it's legit, right? I mean, the claims still are what they are, and your renewal is going to be based on, short way to say it, the past 2 years is going to be weighted differently, but more than anything, they're trying to look forward. So we went to market this year, and we wanted to find out what else is even out there. Now, if all the other carriers come in higher than what your renewal is, then love it or hate it, you have a fair renewal, right? I mean, again, the claims still are what they are. So I'll pass it around. This is what we call our roll-up. This is just a kind of a snapshot of the plan design. So it's basically just looking at what is the deductible and what is the coinsurance. They're not all exactly the same because no carrier has the exact same plan design, so there's some variance there. So we quoted as close to what we could. Everybody else was higher than even what Network calculated your original renewal to be, okay? So what does that tell us? There's stuff going on, okay? That happens. I mean, you have insurance for a reason, and, you know, yes, this is not a very favorable renewal, but it's a very fair renewal, and I'm glad that we were able to get the rate lock, or the rate cap for you guys, or we would have been looking at 39% increase, and that still would have been your best option. Okay? Now, there are some other things that I think the village is doing that are really good. So, yes, these deductibles might look high, and they are, but there's also the HRA that's layered in there. So that makes sure that the employee isn't going to be exposed to that entire deductible amount. It's a good plan. It's working really well. So statistically, the utilization on that has been running at about 50%. So far this year, it's much lower. I mean, it's at like 37%, but you would expect that at this point in the year. So you're on track to basically be right where you've been in prior years. So that's good. It's having the village take on a little bit more risk and the insurance carrier take on a little bit less, but the numbers have been working out for you guys. So one of the other things that Nick asked me to do was put together kind of like a comparison of other municipalities. What are they doing? What do their plan designs look like? What's the cost? I didn't bring that with me today. He can certainly share that with you if you'd like him to, but ultimately the cost that the village has is significantly less, oftentimes by half of what other municipalities are paying. Now, on that spreadsheet, most of the other municipalities who are on there either have an HSA that they're contributing like 50% of the deductible into, or they have an HR arrangement that's somewhat similar to what you guys have going on, one of the two. And of different sizes, I think they're all, I mean, none of them are huge compared to you guys. I think the largest one was like 9,000 for the population of the community. So when you're on the lower end of the bell curve, right? I mean, we can now look at statistics and look at a standard bell curve. When you are on the lower end of that, they're taking a little bit more from Peter to pay Paul. And that's the unfortunate side of being down there. If you were already on the higher end and you had a horrible year, there's no way you're gonna get a 40% increase because your premiums are already that much higher. So that is the downside to being a little bit healthier and running so well, is that you are exposed to those greater fluctuations versus having something that's a little bit more stable. The bottom line is your premiums are still far below what we're seeing on average. So you're in a good place, you're in a good spot, and you're doing a good job managing it by having that HRA layered in. So that's kind of the overall synopsis on what's going on. The other document that I prepared for you guys is a summary that, oh, sorry, let me give you that. That takes a look, I'll walk you through this, I'll wait till everybody gets it, because there's a lot of moving parts on this.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
What's an HRA?
Thank you for asking. It's a health reimbursement arrangement. So, like the actually, let's talk about it once we get this out, because it's right on top. So, this is something that any employer has the ability to put in place. There's a lot of flexibility around it, but it's basically a hypothetical bucket of money that's there that the village is liable to pay out in the worst case scenario. But the reality is, 75% of people use $1,000 or less of healthcare in a year. So if you go with a higher deductible and you say, well, hey, we've got this money here just in case those claims come in, we'll pay them out. So to the employee, it appears as though you have much less exposure in potential out-of-pocket expenses. But instead of buying an insurance plan that, say, has a $350 deductible, that would cost an arm and a leg compared to having this higher deductible and then layering in that HRA.
Okay, and you'll explain what their deductible actually, so their deductible is actually like $350?
Correct. Yep. So if you look at the very top of this, I'm gonna focus just on the single plan. Family is double, okay? So we'll just simplify it and we'll just focus on the single plan. So today, the way that it would work is the employee would be responsible for $350. Nick, is it shared all the way up? Is it a 10% or?
10%.
Yeah, okay. So they pay, it's not just a straight $350 up front, but they basically pay 10.
No, it is 350, the first 350.
And then it's 10%?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the employee pays the first $350, no,
Yeah, it's the first 350, then the village pays the remaining part of that
balance.
deductible.
Okay, thank you for
What I meant by
clarifying.
10% is it's 10% for family or single.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we voted last year, just, they pay as they go. I would ask Darren, I mean, Darren has.
I am pretty confident it is the first 350 or the first $700 is the employee's expense.
Darren comes back with that.
Yep.
Okay.
So, so the employee pays the first $350, and then the HRA would be potentially responsible to pay for $351 up to $3,500, which is the deductible. After the deductible has been met, there's 0% coinsurance. So that means that for any of the big stuff, diagnostics, hospital stays, surgeries, things like that, there's no additional expense. So from $35.01 up to $65.50, those are expenses that the employee potentially could have, but they only come in the form of post-deductible copays. So prescription copays, office visit copays, things like that. I'm not saying it's impossible for an employee to hit that number. It is highly, highly unlikely. So, like in this example, there'd be, we'll just ballpark it, $3,000 in potential expenses until that member hits their out-of-pocket maximum, which is their worst-case scenario number. So if you have a $10 prescription, or say you have I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's a $100 urgent care copay as an example. You'd have to have 300 urgent care visits in order to hit that. So again, I'm not saying it's impossible. It could happen, but it's very unlikely that a member would hit that maximum. Okay. So if we take a look at that, and then below that we have the monthly rates, so you can see what it costs for a single employee spouse, employee children, and then a two-parent family. Currently, the village is paying about total, this is with the village contribution and with the employee contribution, but just total spend is just under $23,000 a month, or $273,000 annually. The next section on here breaks out the HRA. So this is maximum liability. This is worst case scenario. So if every single member hit their out-of-pocket maximum or hit their deductible, even not even the out-of-pocket maximum, just their deductible, this is how much the village would potentially be liable for. So again, don't freak out about this number. Statistically speaking, 75% of people use less than $1,000 a year of healthcare. Okay. But we use this to figure out, what is the utilization running at. So the max exposure currently would be about $167,000 a year. And then what we do is we figure out based on utilization on all these different categories, and we look at historically how much has been claimed on. Some years are a little bit higher than others. I've seen it go as high as 60%, but if we average it out, it's about 52%. So that's how we determine what the COBRA rates are, or what you could really say is how much each employee is costing you on average for the HRA, if that makes sense. So then we look a little bit further down here where it says monthly medical and HRA COBRA rates. So each employee's cost to the village is actually about $465 for a single, $983 for employee spouse, $880 for employee child, and then about $1,300 for a two-parent family. So that's factoring in on, again, we're averaging it out what you pay for each person on the HRA along with what those medical premiums are. Okay. And then at the bottom, we have the actual cost that we expect to see for the HRA spend. What the administrative fees are, those are not factored into any of these numbers, but that's basically just having an outside administrator from a compliance standpoint, make sure your documents are good, and then of course process all those claims. So it's really nice being with Network Health. They have a partnership with Employee Benefits Corporation. So the employee doesn't even have to file their claims. Most of this is just, as I say, they wave their magic wand and it's just done behind the scenes. So all those other parties just basically talk to each other to take care of it, which is really nice. The exception to that is if somebody has a prescription claim. When we were with United Healthcare, that was a manual process. Well, United Healthcare has many pros to it. The biggest complaint that we heard from as employees is having to submit all those EOBs every single time that you need to make a claim and get that reimbursement. So now it's all taken care of behind the scenes, which is nice. So total cost is about $361. And again, that's not factoring in how much the employees are paying for their insurance. This is just looking at the hard numbers. Okay? Fun stuff, right? And then we have the renewal information. You'd have to go about where it says utilization, or actually where it says maximum liability on down, we'll show you current and renewal information. So you'll notice on the renewal portion, I did also list an option that has 65% utilization, because you have to remember with this, it's a range, it's an educated guess based on history. We don't know what they're gonna be. So I just wanna say that, it could be up in this range, and we just wanted to be able to show you what those numbers look like. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Mike? Okay, first question I got is there any chance of getting a cap for next year?
I was just gonna ask that.
Not even a little bit.
Not
Nope.
not even 15%?
No, they won't. We actually did bring it up. I mean, there's, especially when you're running hot like this, and I apologize, I was trying to look back in emails. I didn't write down what your loss ratio is, but if my memory serves me correct, it was in the ballpark of, I want to say it was 144, but I could be wrong on that. Let's just even say it was like 130, 140. That means if it's 130% loss ratio, every dollar that you paid to Network Health, they paid out $130 in claims. So they
Last
lost.
year, was that?
Yeah, I mean, they lost a lot of money on you last year, and based on what we're seeing for your renewal calculation and what every other carrier says, they're probably gonna lose money on you this year as well. Okay? So it doesn't mean that next year's renewal is gonna be horrible. Yes, there are some manual factors that go into that renewal calculation, but any underwriter's biggest concern is what's coming in the next year. So it's okay, you're gonna run hot sometimes. I mean, that's claims, that's insurance. So I will say, I think this window is shortening up, but again, statistically, about every 5 to 7 years is when you kind of see that spike, and then things level out a little bit more. So, you had one of those years. But you also need to remember that over the last 5 years, you've had a 16% increase overall in your insurance, which is almost unheard of. Yes. I mean, medical trend, it depends who you ask and where you live, but I'll average it out and say it's about 10% a year. So something that cost $100 last year is going to cost $110 next year, right? So even if you ran right where they wanted you to, and all they did, which is 85% loss ratio, by the way, that's where it allows them to still cover administration. My commission is built in that, right? So those are all those things. If you ran at 85% loss ratio, you're still going to get an increase of 10%, at least in theory, right? So, yeah,
Just-
I mean,
a couple of things. A couple of reasons why we they stayed kind of, you know, a narrow increase because we kept increasing the deductible. I think we used to be at a lot lower deductible, but the village,
We're only at as low as 2850, if my memory serves me correct, right in that 2850.
well, now we're at the,
3,000.
what,
3,500.
$35,000 to
35
$7,000
Yeah.
rate? So I think we should be a lot lower, but that helped offset some of those
Yep.
higher increases. And we have a $41,000 increase from last year, correct? About that?
Yes.
So that's, all right.
Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Keith.
Yeah, thank you. Your question to Darren about, what was it about the deductible? I wanted to hear that
Yeah,
answer.
when you pay your co-pays on that, you know, the first $350 or $700, is it prorated or you pay the deductible first? It's prorated, let's say you get a bill for $500, do you pay the first $700 out of that, or do you pay a percentage of it?
No, you pay the full thing right away,
Okay.
but it is split though for a family plan. It's $350 for me alone, and then $350 for my family. So in essence, if I go in and I hit the $7,000, I'm the first one in, they're not gonna pay the full $700, they're only gonna pay $350. The
And
other
then you-
$350
You are
has to be
only
met
paying
by my
$350.
family.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I had thought we had passed something.
No,
last year.
and maybe what you're thinking of is we do have a health savings account that we're allowed to use for that. So rather than us having to have the $500 at January 1, we are able to put in per paycheck up to that amount.
Right, you can put as much as, or up to a
FSA, I'm
cap.
sorry, I said that wrong. I knew you were gonna correct me. It's FSA, not
I understand what you're
HSA.
saying, but I'm out, so, okay.
I have one more question, Mike, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
Keith.
Thank you. What, I know you don't have a crystal ball, okay?
I wish I did.
I wish you did, but you seem very knowledgeable in what you do. You're very good at what you do. Educated guess, what do you think that the village is looking at next year? Do you think it will be over a 30% increase?
It could be. It's really hard to say.
Depending on what goes
because,
on with the federal government and,
It's less about what's going on at the federal government, in all honesty. I mean, a lot of the changes that have been happening when you hear stuff on TV, most of that is directed at the individual market, which isn't you guys. So
Right.
anything that's really happening isn't having much of an impact at all on the group space. Because you guys are experience rated, so much of it is dependent on what happens in the next year. So is a 30% out of the question next year? No. It depends. I mean, based on what we're seeing other carriers come in with, it would indicate to me, because they don't care about what happened in the past. They're not taking on any of that past risk.
Okay.
They're only looking forward. There's stuff that's gonna happen this year. So
Mhm.
I would prepare yourself for a decent increase next year. I think that's definitely something that could happen.
now, is being able to shop for insurance across state lines, you know what I'm talking about? Looking out of prior to that, you couldn't do that, correct?
Yeah, there's,
Is there anything to that, or is that
Not
just
really.
hype?
no, it's more hype than anything
Okay.
else. So, the carriers haven't really responded to that yet, so again, we'll see what happens in the future, but, I don't
I was
really
just
see that
curious if it,
impacting anything.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you, appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
That's all I have, Mike, thank you.
I
Any
like
other-
your guys' questions. Fire away.
Any other questions?
I don't think we have much choice here, you know.
Can I
Sure, go ahead.
remind,
Yeah.
what I'd like to do is, like you just said, we didn't, as we look at this and we talk to Sarah Beth, it's like, well, this is kind of a no-brainer. It's an easy decision in the
Right.
fact that this is our best option. The hard part of it is figuring out how to pay for it. And that's what we'll have to work on when we get through the budget unfortunately, we have to figure it out soon, but we don't have to figure that out tonight. We need to just, what I'd like to do is approve the contracts, move forward with that, and then we need to work on, as staff, we've already started a little bit, and then collectively as the board through the budget process, figure out how we're gonna make up the $39,000, and I think it's gonna be a number of different things. But for now, we would like to get these renewals going, and then really by October 1st is when this goes into effect. So if we want to figure out how it's going to be paid for, assuming that there may be some increase to the employee's portion of it, that's going to have to be ironed out by October 1st. So we really have 2 more meetings before then to figure that out, and we're already starting to work on that.
And so you guys have it, I'll pass these around, and you don't need to look through these right now, but these are the benefit booklets that we put together, so we actually have 3 different ones. There's one for employees that work 20 to 29 hours, they have some options, but not as much, 30 to 39, and then 40 hours plus. So, this is what you guys, so you can see what they have as an overall benefit package as you're looking through all of that, so.
There's 3 of them?
There's
One of
three
each.
them.
A bunch of copies of each.
You wouldn't believe how many
Oh,
trees we
one of
have
each
this
I
time
get,
of
I'm
year.
sorry, I
Yep.
thought there was, okay. Well, can I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
None of the benefit package has changed, like 1 year we found out one carrier didn't carry vision or something. Is there anything benefit
You
change
are
on network?
renewing your plan exactly as is.
Okay.
So Network Health is one of 2 carriers today that still includes a vision exam as a preventive exam. Nobody else does, so yes, that went away when we went to United Healthcare, but they got that back. So we actually changed the voluntary vision plan as well for employees, so that it only covers materials and we're not duplicating what they need to pay.
And I'll add to that, Network Health Plan, over the years, we've had a number of them, and I think the employees have responded. The Network Health Plan seems to be the one everybody likes the most, because like Sarah Beth said, everything happens behind the scenes, there's really not a lot of work for the employees to do, and they keep coming in as the cheapest, so it's a win-win. And when you call Network Health, it's somebody, is it Stevens Point or Was?
No, it's in Menasha. You
Menasha.
actually talk to a person, which is nice.
So it's very nice insurance. And I know the employees appreciate that simplified part of it.
All right. Is there any other questions or comments? What is the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the insurance contracts with Network Health effective October 1st, 2018.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion by King, second by Stutz to approve the insurance contracts. Is there any more discussion? Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
Good to see you.
All right, moving down to number 2, discussion and possible action to allow the placement of positive behavior interventions and supports, the PBIS signs at village-owned parks. Darren, did you want,
Darren?
Yeah.
Go grab one. I'll grab one.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to, this was a big agenda. I got to get to my right page here. I sent out a background that you all should have received. Just to put it as succinctly as possible, PBIS is a program that's been in place in the school district for about 10 years now. It's also in place in the Fond du Lac School District, as well as other school districts throughout Fond du Lac County. The idea behind it is teaching kids that they are accountable and responsible for their behaviors, their decisions, and their community. And, it started out in the school being their community. This is just a step that the county is interested in taking to help expand that to not just your school community, but your overall community. So these types of signs have been added to parks throughout Fond du Lac County, and they funded, the school district funded the signs and just want the permission to post those in the public areas here in North Fond du Lac, the parks, the village pool, that kind of a thing. Again, just reminding kids that they see these in school every day. And so this is just expanding that message outside the school and saying, hey, you're not in the walls of the school today, but these things still apply to you, so.
well, I'm familiar with this, being on the school board for 3 years, that was pushed and mentioned almost every meeting, so I know the kids are used to seeing the PBIS and just seeing like the amount of people that are trying to get out to the village to attend school. Obviously, this is working, so I think it's a great idea. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Darren?
I think it's a great idea, too.
All right. Well, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the placement of the signs in Village Park, Lemieux Park, and Optimist Park. Can I get a second, please?
I second that motion.
All right, got a motion by Streeter, second by Price to approve the PBI signs and to put in our parks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Thank you.
And- Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for doing it.
If you see Aaron, thank the school district for providing those for us. We appreciate that. All right, moving down to number 3, discussion and possible action on review of the EMS transport service. Jake?
Yeah, I can talk about that. Keith, you were the only one that wasn't here at the last meeting. We did discuss it for roughly a half hour. If there's any,
I've done a lot of reading. I do thank the board for holding off on discussion since I was gone. I do appreciate that. I mean, I'm making a decision, rather. Let me rephrase that.
do you have any questions, I guess, in particular for me, or?
I've read through everything, and me and you have had lengthy discussions as far as the transport service goes. So no, I don't really have any questions that stick out at this time.
Does anybody else have any questions of Mike?
I've asked the village administrator to weigh in on the trial period, so.
And I did a lot of work with Jake, making sure these numbers I feel are accurate and making sure we truly have all the costs involved, because obviously that's my job, and I want to make sure we have the right numbers. And I do think we have the right numbers. I do think we added in some depreciation costs, we tried to add some mileage in there to offset some of those, to truly show all the expenses, so we weren't making anything look better than it was. And you know, based on the numbers, it does come out to make a little bit of money right now. If I know there's some contracts out there right now that if those get signed, it will increase the revenues, but I don't think, and Jake and I have had these discussions, even if they get a lot of transport, a lot of the contracts will be during the day, so that's a lot of revenue because we're already paying people to be here. So those contracts are an important part of this. If we can get those, the revenues are definitely going to increase. I think the benefits that we get along with it, with having people here for fire calls, I mean, you've seen the numbers, that there's more people responding, there's quicker responses, there's a second ambulance being covered all the time during the day. I think those are good benefits, as long as this thing is making money, even if it's not a lot. I mean, I know initially it looked like, it was maybe presented that it was gonna make a lot of money, and it's not right now. Does it have some potential to make more? I believe so. But as long as it's making money, I feel like we should keep it. Because the EMS budget, as we'll talk about later tonight, you know, we're putting on more full-time people as we have, you know, 5 years ago, there was more full-time people. Now our costs have gone up, but our per capita tax rate hasn't. So as insurance and wages and all that stuff increases, if we don't increase our per capita, we're gonna be running short on money. So I think this is an opportunity or a service to try and offset some of that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is that all you had, Mike?
Yeah.
Keith?
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of agree. I do agree with Nick. I know I've had some discussions with other people about the ambulance that's being used, as far as like mileage and things, putting mileage on it, you know, things like that. But with a diesel engine, it's better to keep it running. For one thing, the miles aren't really a huge concern on something like that, because you can put, you know, a ton of miles on those things, and they just keep running. And if it's making money, I think it's like anything new. You know, we're a newer transport service out in the field. There's other services that are doing it, that people are used to calling first, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think the more that we get our name out there, with the advertising that doesn't cost a lot, and the things that you're doing, I think are really good. I think it'll build. I think it'll grow. You know, because I think you guys and ladies do a wonderful job, and I think it will grow. And I'm with Nick. As long as it's making money, you know, we have more people here during the day to cover the other calls. I just think it's at this point a win-win situation. I think it's something that, you know, that the board should keep an eye on as far as the money it's making, you know, so that it doesn't tank and, you know, end up costing us a lot of money. But I definitely would be in favor of keeping it going at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy?
Thank you. Just want to remind the board that, I appreciate that we are looking at this at the one-year mark. When we went into this, that's what we were gonna do is visit this and then just see how things were going. Just want to remind the board that, I agree. I'm in favor of continuing in that it is helping fire, because those folks that are running the secondary ambulance, they are all cross-trained, and we are getting our fire apparatus out the door in a timely manner. And just as a little bit of a reminder, prior to us entering into this situation, we were relying on city fire to do our secondary or do calls when a 502 call came in. There was a written agreement that was signed by then Administrator Horning, I believe Joe Moore, the village or the city administrator, along with the Chief O'Leary, myself, as the EMS director back then. It was basically specified it was an exception and not the rule and not the norm. So they would certainly cover our area, but they expected us to do our share, and by implementing, moving forward with our inter-facility transport, I think we have done our diligence, and we've not had to rely on the city for our secondary ambulance for those sorts of calls. Granted, and you also have to remember that, you look at any sort of, when you're providing a service like an EMS service, there are write-offs. That's something that we have to face. We provide a service. Every ambulance service suffers write-offs. I don't know of any that in the state that doesn't have some sort of a write-off
It's impossible.
on their service. That number is always, you look at that, it's like, holy cow, that's a lot of money. But on the other hand, we provide a service, and these are folks that don't have the means. I think that's, it comes with a cost, but I agree with Keith. We need to watch the numbers. There's some money that it did make this year, but, I really wouldn't want to, at this point, discontinue that service. I think we are speaking with some people on the healthcare side. In other facilities, we are getting our name out there. They are using us. There are services that facilities couldn't rely on. They can rely on us. As Nick said, a lot of these calls are coming in during the day, so we're able to get that vehicle down there. So I would not like to see us take a step back at this time, but let it be known that I think we need to continue to monitor its progress. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Mike?
Yeah, I would echo what you're saying, and between the two of you about, as long as it's breaking even or making a profit. But I always think that to look for niches for the village, and, like we do the court system is a little niche, and we have the water utility, and this is another little niche that we can, carve out for North Fond du Lac, and if we can build off of this, and it'd be a nice thing. So, one question I got for Jake: what would be your conservative estimate that you would hope to try to, in the next year here, a conservative estimate you'd like to try to grow that transport?
A
service?
goal, or maybe
Yeah. Conservative, don't.
Yeah, it's hard to say. With the contract that we're working with Waupun and SSM Health, that could be a substantial impact on our budget. So I'm not going to throw out some crazy numbers saying, we could have, they transport quite a few people out of there, whether it's back to St. Agnes or SSM Health here in Fond du Lac, or to another care facility down in Madison, UW, or Milwaukee. So I don't really want to throw numbers out and give you a false perception, I guess, on what potentially could happen. But with that contract in place, it definitely will make more money. So I don't think it's going to all of a sudden cover $100,000, but, Nick and I discussed it, and if it can cover, where we're at essentially right now for year to date, you know, that would be the end goal. So, and cover some of the expenses for 500, so. And that's what these contracts are meant to do. We, started doing more transports out of Aurora up in Oshkosh, so we've been going, from there, a couple of them to St. Elizabeth's up in Appleton, and other facilities, whether it be UW or down to Freightert, which is a good thing. So that's kinda, I don't wanna spitball any numbers that aren't gonna be true.
Ann?
I would just say something about kind of the margin rate. It's pretty much break even now, but your main cost driver is labor. So the more transports you have, the more labor. So it doesn't seem like it's ever gonna be a high profit percentage. I mean, you could double the profit, but it seems like it'd still be close to break even, just if you look at where the costs are coming from.
Except what I agree with you, except the transports that happen during the day.
But aren't you allocating those costs to this then?
Those costs,
rather than-
they're getting paid, those labor costs are in there either way.
Do you
because-
include those in here?
Yes, because they're 502, they're on
Yeah.
for 502.
So it kind of makes the rest of the stuff look better. You wouldn't necessarily see that in this financial statement if you're always putting those costs in. I guess that would be maybe something you wouldn't see, you know, a benefit that's not being reflected in
Right,
here.
but I totally agree with you, after hours, that, like, I talked with Jake, it's like, no matter how many more transports you get after hours, there's costs going with it, so you're not gonna make big profits there, but during the day stuff, you will make more of that money.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ann?
Oh, I guess I echo the sentiment of the rest of the board as well, that, I mean, if it's improving the performance and then, you know, we're break even, with potential to, I guess, increase, I don't know why we would say no, I guess.
I did hand out the duty log that I've been talking
Mhm.
about in the last couple board meetings, so it's kind of an idea. I just had Tyler Babler print off a few that he had made, 3 of them, I believe, so that's the type of paperwork that I'm getting, on a daily basis from whoever's, in charge that day, so it's kind of an idea.
Yeah, Jake, I echo the rest of the board. I mean, as long as, you know, we keep an eye on this and you keep us, you know, informed on what's going on. And, I mean, that's a great incentive for your crew to go out there and beat the bushes for business, you know, I mean, this is
Yeah,
their
we're-
livelihood, so.
Probably every 3-4 months, we go to the area hospitals, Waupun, Aurora, St. SSM, and Fond du Lac, and we get stuff out to them, whether it's, you know, Aurora up in Oshkosh. We were there the other day, and they actually write their names on our pens because they don't want to lose them, and it's their pen. So, which is a good thing, you know, that's something they look forward to. So we always take stuff up there, and that helps with, you know, getting the business from them, so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine as long as you keep us informed. I mean, we certainly don't want to be losing, so, the recommendation from Jake is to continue to staff the secondary ambulance for additional 911 and coverage and interfacility transports. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
All right, we've got a motion by King, seconded by Stutz to approve Jake's recommendation, continuing to staff the secondary ambulance. Any other discussion, comments, questions?
Do
Ann?
we want to make a motion and say we'll review it in 6 months again? Do we put that in with the motion, or do we need not to, we don't need to say that?
Well, I mean, well, Jake understands that we need to see continuous
Yeah, I mean,
updates and.
it's gonna be the same thing that I do, with all the other stuff, you know, with my year-to-date reports on the fire department, so on and so forth. I can bring all that stuff in and get it to you, so you can see this.
Yeah, and then we can discuss that if we see any negative changes.
I guess my question would be, do you want it on a monthly basis? And that overall, I guess, for fire EMS, do you want to see these things on a monthly basis, a 6-month basis, a year-to-date? You know, a
I mean,
yearly thing?
for me, I wouldn't mind seeing a monthly, if that's not an issue, trying to get that information together, Mike.
I mean, I would even be good with quarterly, so it doesn't, so, you know, everybody
Right.
comes around pretty quick, but I wouldn't have a
appreciate it. Is that
problem.
okay with the board quarterly?
I said I'd appreciate it quarterly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Quarterly's fine.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't know how much work it is,
You
so
offer it.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you could do that quarterly, that'd be great. So, any more discussion, comments, concerns? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, moving down to item 4, discussion on September 4th proposed board meeting and possible date change.
And I know we talked about this the last time, and Keith actually.
I brought that up. I had him put it on. I will be in Kankakee, Illinois on September 4th. So I was curious if the board would entertain either the Thursday of that week or the following Monday.
So that would be either the 6th or the 10th, Keith?
Yes, sir. I-
Either way.
You have a problem?
I
with it?
don't have a problem either way,
Oh,
so
I
it's
would,
really up to the rest of the.
if we're gonna move it out to Thursday, I would prefer just doing it on the following Monday, if that works with the board. The reason I say that is one of the department heads that was gonna present the budget isn't available except on the 10th,
Okay.
if that works for everyone.
I think, Randy, did you have a?
I think you had an
conflict?
issue with the 5th, didn't you, Randy?
Yeah, I would the 10th is fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah.
10th?
Works for
Well,
me.
I thank the board for doing
All
that.
right.
I appreciate
The
it.
10th it is, September 10th. All right. Moving on. Item 5, discussion and possible action on the hiring of Tammy Stepbacher as the full-time receptionist office assistant.
I provided backup for this in the packet for the board members. We had 70 applications. We interviewed 5 candidates. We offered it to Tammy, passed all the background checks and work steps and all that stuff. And my recommendation is to hire Tammy Stepbacher, starting her at the pay grade 4B on the field and office support position wage scale. And that would be, it would be effective starting next Monday, August 27th.
So, I mean, I get that we approved, the position that we had to create, but does the board have to approve an office person? I mean, I get it, like, when we approve, like, an officer, because it comes from, the plan commission, but, or the,
The auditors like to see the board approve it.
pardon me?
The auditors like
Okay.
to see you approve it.
Okay, I just don't recall doing it.
I would think we would.
Okay, I can't remember. Swiss cheesy here going on. in
Just
my
like the
notes.
Police and Fire Commission approves your hiring of officers, correct?
Okay.
I haven't heard.
Just want to make sure. Anybody have any questions or comments for Nick regarding Tammy?
She has, I'm sure she has pretty good qualifications. She moved up, a little bit up the pay scale, not a ton, but
Yeah,
that's-
I mean, there was a negotiating range posted with it. We felt it.
I will make the motion to discussion, the hiring of Tammy Stepbacher as a full-time receptionist office assistant.
I have a second?
I'll second it. Or- And Ken.
I got a motion by Will, second by Price, to approve Tammy Stepbacher as the new full-time receptionist office assistant. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, moving down to item 6, discussion and possible action on awarding a bid for street improvements on Bradley Avenue and Alpine Circle.
This is what we talked about earlier, the resolution to assess. This is 100% assessable cost to the village. We are basically contracting the work. We opened the bids a couple weeks ago. We'd like to award the bid to Northeast Asphalt. We did only receive one bid, as we also did for our street overlays. Based on our estimates, it's a little bit higher, but that was the same case with our overlays, and we're seeing asphalt and fuel prices are going up, and we're seeing contracts also going up with those around the area, along with the fact that the construction industry right now is extremely busy, and they're not necessarily looking for work. So we feel this is still a fair bid, and again, it's 100% accessible.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding this? Mike?
Couple of questions. I mean, the developer, I'm sure he's good. He doesn't pay none of it, right?
Well, the developer's paying all of it.
I mean, but again, he gets assessed, we're paying the whole thing, and we'll charge it back each individual lot owner.
Well, no, he's responsible to pay that. He is the responsible party. As he sells lots, he has up to 10 years to pay it back, but as he sells lots, he will be paying us.
Now, I guess I'm confused. Will we approve tonight, or are we gonna assess these tenants?
Yep, you're assessing 4 homeowners,
Okay.
and the rest of the lots are owned by the developer. So the 4 homeowners are getting an assessment, which
Okay.
we have the money for already.
Right.
And he owns the rest of the lots, so they will be assessed for the rest of the lots.
Okay, one quick question, I'm sure.
Yep.
Is not much of a chance waiting till spring to, probably be in the same boat or maybe worse.
Probably in the same boat. Another thing I'll say to that is we've had those residents, and Brian can attest to this on the end up there, they've been calling us for 5 years.
I
wondering
know,
when it's
they
gonna get
deserve
done.
it.
They've
I
waited
know.
way too
I know.
long. This is the developer's problem.
I agree with you. It's
Any other questions for Nick? All right, I'm gonna need a motion to either approve or deny the bid for the improvements on Bradley Ave and Alpine Street.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead, go ahead, Randy.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid to Northeast Asphalt.
I have a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Stott, second by King to award the bidding for street improvements on Bradley Ave and Alpine Circle to Northeast. Could I get any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Discussion, number 7, discussion on police, fire, and EMS 2019 budgets.
So I think everybody has their budget. I know you didn't, and I was gonna ask the board, is this something you would rather me get out to you on Friday when we're doing these budget discussions? Would you like me to send a packet out so you have the paper so you can make notes before the meeting?
I like it better because it's harder to.
I mean, I know you're gonna want the paper.
Yeah.
But would you like me to send these out like we used to on Friday afternoon, so you have it for the weekend if you wanna review things?
I like to, if it is
Okay.
too much.
We'll do that because it's only like the next 3 meetings, so we can have the police department do that for the next 3 meetings and deliver those.
At worst case, you could be having Bill, we can pick up to it if it's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
It's up to the police department.
We'll figure out the details, but I just wanted to run that by the board, because I know when I was putting this together, I thought, boy, I bet they would appreciate having these over the weekend. But I know you have nothing better to do. So we'll start with the tab number 3, which is public safety, and the first part of that is police department. I'll just let Darren go with the police department budget.
Honestly, you have all the information in front of you. I don't want to sit here and go through this thing line by line. I guess I'd much rather just answer questions that you may or may not have.
Yes, I'll ask, it's in there, you're requesting lieutenant, right? Is that right?
I'm sorry, what?
You're requesting a lieutenant for this budget?
Well, that was in the 2018 budget as well.
No, I'm not saying, I just.
But, yes.
It's in the,
Yep.
list of things, I'm not saying,
Yep.
I support if I don't, your listing is up.
No, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that that wasn't like a new request.
Okay,
So-
maybe I didn't look at it
Yeah.
close, okay, all right. So, pretty high increase of 5.2.
Can you talk to us about the increase, I guess, what's driving that, if you had a lieutenant?
Sure, yeah, I mean, if you look at the,
Budget.
if you look at the first 2 pages, what you'll see is that the increase is specifically or solely the wages, health insurance, the things that I have absolutely no control over. The things that I control, there isn't an increase.
I guess, can you tell me why wages are up 5%? Did you add a position, or
Well, we haven't filled, we've been understaffed since 2012.
was your 2018
No.
budget understaffed, though?
I
Yes.
can explain.
It wasn't budgeted to have the positions filled the entire time.
Okay.
It was sort of prorated, I guess, is the best word I could come up with to describe that. And it was based on a best guess scenario as to when we might be able to get the positions filled.
Okay.
So that's the rationale. Now, what happened in 2018 is obviously our wages is well under what we've spent, and will be at the end of the year, but the overtime is absolutely through the roof. So in talking with Nick about this, we're kind of caught in a catch-22, where if we keep saying we're not going to fill those positions and we don't budget that money in wages, but we're budgeting overtime, saying we think we're going to have those positions filled and we're not going to need all of that overtime, we're going to end up short of what we actually need. So basically, we put this together with, I mean, the money has to go into either wages or overtime, and at this point, we decided to put it in wages and hopefully have less overtime.
If you add wages and overtime, though, the 2018 estimate versus the budget, there's still a $100,000 increase in the estimate over the budget. I saw that your overtime is over, but you still are, we're still looking at a $100,000 increase,
Yep.
even with all that extra overtime.
Yep.
So, and what Darren was talking about, so last year's budget, the lieutenant position, from what we can gather, was based on about a 6-month timeframe, because it wasn't gonna be done as of January 1. What we did for 2019 is we just assumed 12 months. And with that, along with that, that's not the whole reason. The other reason is there's, through their union contracts, they have pay progressions, and there's a number of progressions, and some of them are pretty significant
Forgot that.
within the officers in the police department. So that, combined with figuring the full 12 months, adds that dollar amount. The health insurance number, that has to do with which employees are taking, which employees aren't taking, which employees have family plans. We have no control over that, and that's why the increase there.
You
Is the
participate, your first year.
Is the lieutenant position currently filled?
No.
No,
It hasn't been filled?
correct.
But are all the other positions filled?
No.
Which ones are not?
Currently, we have a vacancy as, in the lieutenant's position, and we also have a vacancy in patrol. We also have somebody who's in field training right now who, I guess technically fills a spot, but isn't, or hasn't been, isn't on his own yet, so that's just a very recent addition to what we're paying in 2018, if that makes sense.
So you were short 4 people, now you're short, or you're
I was short 3.
Now you're short
We're no, well, yes,
the lieutenant and the patrol officer.
yes.
Thank you.
I guess, the health insurance, it was a $45,000 increase from your estimate for 2018. Do you expect a lot more family plans? Look at 2018 estimated health insurance at 75, and you're budgeting 120, that's $45,000 increase. Are you expecting more family plans, or?
Well, if you look
Well,
at
it's
the actual
not-
budget numbers, it's a $3,000
It's-
increase.
That's because there's of the unfilled positions right now.
All right, I
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
I'll go back.
Yeah, but you didn't go
Estimated
back
actuals.
far
So it's
enough.
97, so it's about a $23,000.
Yeah, and that's the next column to the right, Mike, if you look, is the difference.
I got it, yep. All right, I get it. I see the 23%, that's it.
Now, I feel like we have this conversation with the police department every year when we talk about budgets, the number, I don't know that in the last 5 years you've ever spent your full-time budget, because you've always been understaffed for the
That is
last
correct.
5 years, so, but I don't think it's serving us well to assume that he's not gonna hire these people or hire them for only half the year. I think we need to actually look at the full, this is, that 798 is assuming we have full staff for 12 months.
This is off the beaten path here, but when will we know that number that we gotta stay under? You know, that rate of inflation or whatever, and they tell us what we
Yeah,
And that's-
October,
and that
late September.
That controls the budget more than anything.
Yep.
All right, okay.
Any other questions for Darren?
I don't.
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, thank you. I'm starting to get, I've talked to some people, some officers, that have talked to me, and I'm starting to get a little bit concerned with the overtime. Not dollar-wise. I'm not concerned about it dollar-wise, but I'm concerned about it safety-wise for our officers. Our officers right now are working, and correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, some of them are working 12 to 16 days in a row. And that, for what they do, North Fond du Lac, if you look at the things that Darren sent out, with all the calls and everything else, when you're working that many hours and that many days in a row, safety can come into to play here. With an officer not being as quick with his intuitions and reflexes, his or hers, excuse me. And it really is starting to concern me, and I think it's something that we're really gonna have to look at as far as beefing that up and getting the officers, that we need, and to help this department out, because, I don't wanna see anybody get hurt, or killed, because of all that excess overtime and thing. I think it's just something we have to kinda look out about, These people, they put it on the line every day, and and they're doing it, but it just concerns me, and I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. Thank you.
I think Darren's doing everything that he.
Oh,
can,
absolutely.
But ever since,
Yeah.
he got in as chief, I mean, it's just been interviews and, I mean, I don't know what, Darren, what's the answer? I mean,
What can
is
we
it
do
just-
to,
Are people just not going into law enforcement, or what is the deal? I mean, what's?
It's a combination of a million different things. There are a fewer number of people that are going into the profession. That's coupled with the fact that there's a ton of people that have retired and continue to retire from the profession for countless different political reasons. And what that has resulted in is, for the first time in my career, it's considered acceptable to go out and steal from other agencies, headhunt people. And we've lost a number of individuals because they've been headhunted by other agencies. And that's going to continue to be the case. As far as how we address it, I don't have a single answer for you. I don't even know that I have 5 good answers for you at this point in time. It's something that I'm continuing to, look at what other agencies are doing to see if I can come up with anything that might benefit us. We continue to look at comparables, things from wages down to things like uniform allowance, just everything under the sun to try to figure out, are there incentives that are important to people that maybe we're not offering that other agencies are. And things like scheduling. Keith mentioned that, and I know I had this conversation with you, Mike, right after you got elected president. I showed you our schedules, and since I've been the chief, there's been zero stability in the schedule, and that's a big part of the reason that we're having a hard time keeping people. So obviously that's a self-perpetuating problem, but I'm trying to figure out how we might be able to fill positions and needs in ways that are maybe a little bit more appealing to individuals. I just had a conversation with one of the officers right before I came into the board meeting tonight, bouncing off of him some of this stuff and pointing out that, I'm looking to them for ideas as well. I mean, they're the ones that are impacted most by it in terms of the hours that you talked about. I think I've said to this board on numerous occasions in the past, we need to do everything possible to keep the people we have. Losing the individuals that we have, they simply can't be replaced. And I don't mean that to sound more dramatic than it is, but the fact of the matter is, the people we have are experienced, they're highly trained because we made them that way. I have a exit interview from Jake Egan when he left, and he said that officers here are expected to be experts in everything, and it's absolutely 100% true. We don't have the luxury of having officers go out and take calls and then pass them along to a detective bureau. It doesn't work that way. You have to be the investigator. You have to be the sensitive crimes interviewer. And all of those things come with a lot of added responsibility, a lot of extra work, and a lot of added stress. So, we're going to have to figure out what it entails to please don't take this as, this is not meant as monetary, but to reward those individuals for who they are and what they are. We need to figure out how to recognize the fact that we know it's important to keep them. So anyhow, it's probably way longer than anybody wanted, but I don't have any one good answer for you.
Does anybody else have anything for Darren, or any other questions? Anything else you wanted to add, Darren, or?
Just that, and again, don't take this the wrong way, but it's August 20th. This is the first thing that I've put together. there are numbers in here that are undoubtedly going to change. What I want to point out to you at this point is, I started this whole thing out and asked the question about the increase, and I started out by saying the things that I can control, I'm controlling, and I commit to you that I'm going to continue to do that. I recognize that we need to be extremely careful stewards of the residents' money, and it's always been my intention to do that. As we move forward in this process, I'm going to provide you guys with a lot more background information, a lot more details. But I think if you go back and look at the time that I've been in control of the budget, going back to 2011, my budget requests have gone down and down and down and down and down, and we've come in under almost every year, under what those lower requests. We're doing everything we can to be responsible stewards of the money. We're going to continue to do that.
Thank you, Darren. Nick, you have anything else on?
Yeah,
police
I'll just
budget?
add to the, at least the positions and the hiring. And Darren and I have had long conversations over the last couple weeks about this very topic and what we were just talking about with retention. And to Keith's point too, with the overtime, is that also besides safety is keeping people here, that they're expected to work so many overtime hours that they just get sick of it. So I think, at least at this point, the best option we have for starters is just to try and get full staff. And that's what this budget's reflecting. And
Yeah.
is that gonna be the answer? Probably not, but it's a good start. And the problem with that is Darren can't hire 3 people overnight. It takes time. So he's been trying to. It's just,
Oh, I know
you know,
he has.
as he hires one leaves, and that's the issue he's been faced with, so.
You just actually made me think of one thing, because I said I was going to continue to provide you guys with more information. One of the things that we came up with after, this is a little bit ironic, I think, but because you'll recall that we just, you guys just approved a wage scale for the investigator's position. Obviously, we lost that investigator in spite of those efforts. And what we're actually looking at doing now, again, in the whole theme of trying to do more with less, but help increase stability, one of the things that we're looking at right now is instead of having an investigator, we're looking at combining, basically making, whether it's a patrol officer or 2 or 3 patrol officers responsible for investigations. So the way that's looking right now, if we ever do get back to being at full staff, whoever is in that position, if they decide they want to work second shift, they would have 3 days of their rotation where they'd be second shift patrol, and then they would have 3 days where they're specifically assigned as the investigator. Same thing if it was first shift, same thing if it was third shift. It's being done in other departments, and they seem to like that. Gives a little bit more stability in the patrol realm of things. Probably utilizes the investigator a little bit more efficiently, because, you know, sometimes where you have just a full-time investigator, sometimes things are slower than at other times, and maybe they don't have necessarily the investigations that they need to work on, and so they're just kind of an added thing that, you know, so this maybe helps spread that out a little bit and maybe helps streamline what we're doing, so.
Randy?
Yeah, just one question. Your lieutenant position, is that a position that's hired within, or is that something that you're looking outside the department?
I haven't gotten far enough in that process to say typically what we do with that, what we did with the investigator, what we did with sergeant's position before that, is we open it both internally and externally, because our options inside are limited. So rather than run a process internally and then decide, okay, nobody meets those, or we don't have who we want here, and I'll start a whole new process over and taking up more time. We run one process where people come in from the outside and people come in from the inside. Now, according to village policy, an internal applicant has the upper leg, all other things being equal. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Darren? All right. Thank you, Darren. Move down to fire and EMS 2019 budgets.
So the next section in here will just be the fire section, and the EMS will be way further in the back, so we'll start with the fire.
I can talk about that. The biggest changes being the full-time wages and then the health insurance. And that's mainly because next year I will have to go onto the health insurance in June, starting in June. So that's the influx. What Chris does is take the percentage of my wages out of fire, and that calculates out to get the health insurance that the fire department's got to pay for. Other than that, there were some changes with longevity due to retirements, and that's about it. So the change being the 2.2%, and that's mainly wages. We did have gear in here under safety equipment, which would be
317.
317. We did take that out. I was, after talking with Nick, we were discussing whether to leave it in or keep it out. And we ended up taking it out. The 3 sets at 2645, I believe, was 7690 for a total. And we'd be asking to take that to capital. We did replace a few sets of gear, 16 to be exact, last year. And the plan was to continue to move forward so that we don't have to make lump sum purchases, is to replace these sets of gear, at 3 to 5 sets every year. And that way, at the 10-year mark, when it is expired, you don't have to purchase 16 sets at one time, if that makes sense.
I don't think I understand.
Turnout gear is the,
Yeah, but you have it in here as a dollar amount, you think you're gonna take that out?
it's
No,
not in there.
it's not in there.
It's,
Okay.
it's listed on, as a line item, but the actual
Not on here.
value is not on the left-hand column, so it's not added into the right-hand column, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
It was in there and I took it out and put it in capital.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Jake, one quick question.
Yep.
How many paid on-call volunteers you have right now?
19, I believe.
Continuous occupancy
So,
button.
it's
Is that-
19 or 21, I'd have to look at my sheet.
Is that suiting your needs, 19?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. We're just above 8 members per call. So, and that includes, our daytime staffing. So we have 4 people here. So typically we get, 50% of the time it's 4 paid on call guys, throughout the day, and then at night we typically are getting, 6 to 8. So, and it rotates. We get different faces in here throughout. So,
So
I
with
think it's-
having those guys during the day, you probably need less paid on-call guys too, right? Or not?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
NFPA sets a standard that there's 15 firefighters on scene within a certain amount of time, so we still need them. That's definitely a key part to everything, is having the paid on-call people here and responding.
Okay. So I mean, is 19 enough, or you need to?
Yeah,
boost-
right around 20. Right now, our staff's at 41, I want to say. So with the last 4 that we added on, I think we're at 41 now. So then that's 8 part-timers, 6 full-timers, and then the rest are paid on call, whether it's strictly EMS only, paid on call people, and then we have the fireside guys. So, I mean, if we could get multiple paid on call firefighters, but it's difficult to find them. But we continue to search. So I think the last 2 years we've added probably around 5. So if that trend continues, we'll be sitting in a good spot.
Anything else, Mike? Did you have something? Randy?
No.
Oh, okay. Anybody else have anything for Jake? For fire? All right, then moving on to EMS.
Yep.
All right. So the changes with 502 wages, there was a mistake made last year, I want to say, that they weren't put in the budget correctly, so it was showing as a negative. That's why there's a 33% increase for this year. I think The other portion of that is we, this year, split the total amount of money that we had allotted for 502 and split some into 502 wages and some into part-time wages to make the lines meet. Next year, we better budgeted. After talking with Nick and Chris for a lengthy period of time, it seems like these numbers will be more where we need to be at year to date. Essentially, the part-time wages covers anytime somebody's taking vacation on 500, we have a part-timer fill that spot. That's what those wages are for. And then 502 is everything that involves 502, whether it's overtime or regular staffing, so on and so forth. So the overtime is up a little bit, and that's due to the fact that we do have more staffing now, so the possibility of having people take vacation, so on and so forth, is higher, so that's why the overtime went up. Health insurance, I can't really control that.
Mike, do you have something?
When Jake's finished.
No, you can throw questions out as we go here.
Question on the 19 budget, if I see that right, you have a $45,000 deficit
That is correct.
in that budget, so you're gonna have to bring those numbers together. We don't ever budget a deficit, do we?
Well, with this, this is, you gotta kinda look at this one similarly as we do with the utilities. It's a self-sufficient fund, so there's no more, short of increasing the per capita amount, there's no levy amount we can increase. The wages and things are hard to change. I mean, when you have a certain number of full-time people, you have to pay them. There's a certain number, the costs, I mean, I think we've looked at this pretty closely because of that. And I think the real issue here was that the assumed revenue was maybe a little bit inflated in the past, and we're bringing that back down to where we think it really will be. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about the transport service, that, without the transport service, that number grows, that negative number grows. So,
To my knowledge, I don't ever remember, budgeting a negative starting
Yeah.
off. That would be I would hope we try to close that gap.
Yeah, that's obviously the goal. A big chunk of that is gonna be the capital equipment expenses in, that'd be account 804. That's almost $20,000 that after next year will be gone, cause those will be paid off, so that was our life packs.
the other thing I'll mention, and Randy touched on it earlier, and I don't mean to butt in front of you here, Randy,
No,
but
go ahead.
There's a certain amount of the uncollectible that is actually put on the books as a liability, so it's actually, this $45,000, if all these numbers worked out exactly how we're guessing they're gonna work out, $45,000 is in the red, that number would be reduced by, I would guess, $20,000 to $30,000, because every year the auditors take a portion of that uncollectible, and if you look, that uncollectible is on the second page. If you look up, you see that 350,000. A portion of that, the auditors will take, because part of that is just Medicare, Medicaid, those things, just knock it right off. Well, there's certain parts of that that just aren't collected, people don't pay. The auditors will take that and put it on your books as a revenue sitting out there. So in the end, the audit will not show a negative $45,000. It might be closer to negative 10. Now, this is just the way I would like to do this budget, is we budget it the way we think it's gonna be. I think that we could easily increase the revenues and make it 0, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think we need to be real about what those numbers really, we expect them to be.
Randy first.
Go ahead, no, go ahead, I'll let you.
Go ahead.
They're already carrying a deficit already, EMS. Now we added to it this year by 18
Yep.
projected, and now
And that deficit is largely due to the purchase of the ambulance. Just remember that, it was an operation. I mean, remember that part of it, it was an operation.
they hope they have this, we're supposed to be projected.
Yep, and now I think that was the expectation based on the assumed revenues, but that's not No, it's not gonna be there. We know that at this point in the year, it's not gonna be there. I mean, Jake and I have looked at
Yeah.
this. And Chris Ruck, she's hoping, I'm hoping she comes to most of our budget meetings. She couldn't tonight, she had something else to do, but she explained a lot of this to me too, about that when the audit, cause she gave me the sheets from the last few audits, and really when it looks like it's a $45,000 loss, after the auditors are done with it because of that uncollectible portion, it really isn't. And she felt pretty comfortable with these numbers too. But like I said, we have to look at this as it's its own fund. So you have two options. You cut your service, which we've already maintained, as Randy stated earlier, we have our paramedic service, we have 2 full-time ambulances during the day. That's our service, those are our costs. And we have per capita, and we have the money we can collect for calls. Those are the numbers we can work with what we have. So if we wanna make it 0, we have to increase our per capita. And I don't necessarily think that that's the right thing to do at this time.
We changed our rates a little bit, and not a big deal, this last 3-4 months ago, we changed our rates a little bit.
Yeah,
the charge rate.
that soaks up anywhere from like 10 to 15,000 that's the difference that we're seeing year to date.
And they're plugged in here too?
Yeah, all the changes, yeah, that's
Increases are
all.
plugged in here?
Randy?
I just have one question to Jake. Has MSAC seen this budget yet or not?
No. Mm.
Okay. The $24 per capita, is that what you ran last year?
Yep,
And you're not proposing an increase?
not at this time.
Not at this time, okay. And then under 301, general office, you have a 138% increase. Are you purchasing or are you budgeting something, a larger ticket item for the, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I can speak to that.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that was what Chuck did, is the IT budget.
Oh,
And if you look at right now, it's at 1356. Last year, it was at 1876.
right.
However, we're budgeting $800. It just was under budgeted in the
Okay.
past, significantly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything for Jake?
I have a question. Can you show me on here what you're talking about with the ambulance, what line that comes through and where we're paying that?
You're talking about the uncollectible part?
No, you said that we're up because they bought an ambulance.
No, right now, I think Mike had mentioned that they're about $145,000 in the red right now, the entire fund.
Oh, okay.
And that was due to last year's purchase of the ambulance, is why they ran in the negative last
Okay.
year. Sorry, that's not
That's
in here.
okay.
Mhm.
Anybody have anything else?
I have another question. I
Yeah,
guess.
go ahead.
If you think that they're gonna be $10,000 more, like, you must get to pick up like uncollectible things that they think they're really gonna actually be able to collect, is that what the
Well,
$10,000?
they put it on the books as a, and you probably know more about this than I do.
Receivable?
Receivable, yep, a
Sure.
receivable out there. I don't normally put those things in the budget. I suppose we could.
Okay.
Because you're right, it's not painting the whole picture. It's just hard to guess at those numbers.
Sure.
I think it's better just to take it from the statements that we get at the end of the year than put it in here.
You think it's better to budget it at the $45,000 negative than to put it in?
Yes, as odd as that sounds, because it's not 100% guaranteed, and I think that the way that this budget is written now, I think it's a lot better than what it was, and that it would be smart to keep that number out. Because that's almost saying, we're gonna make this, but you don't know 100% that we're gonna make this, and it could be, for this year's budget, typically we see an influx in revenue come February, March, April the following year, because LifeQuest does tax intercepts for us. So to say that in 2020, we're gonna receive that money, it shouldn't really necessarily be in the expenses for a 2019 budget, if that makes sense. Or revenues, I should say.
Sure. But if they're gonna accrue it, I mean, it's probably gonna happen, right? Because
Well-
you're gonna have uncollected receivables. You always have
But
uncollected
it's,
receivables.
yeah, but it's not guaranteed. I mean, it's just sitting out there. At some point, you may collect it, you may not.
Okay.
We see revenues from, I think the last sheet that I looked at, it was probably July of last year. I wanna say that we were having a payment plan from a patient on, and that's just how it
I'll talk to
works.
Chris about that though, Ann,
Okay.
to see what her take on that is. She knows more about it than I do.
Anything else, Ann?
No, I'm good,
Okay.
thank you.
Anybody have anything else for Jake?
Yeah, one last question. Telephone, I mean, you budgeted this year like 968, you project you're gonna spend 2,600. What changed there? And I know next year you've got another 25, so you increased it by almost $1,500.
Yeah, that's another, issue with what was budgeted for and what we're actually spending year to year, so.
Have you increased the
No.
cell phones and
No.
stuff like that?
If you look
We've
at, Mike,
actually
the first column is
decreased.
the 2017 actual, it was $2,800.
Yep, I see that.
And if you look back at 16, it was around
Budgeted
that.
wrong, I see, okay,
Yeah.
all right, yep. All right, that was budgeted.
And that, part of that is, it's nobody's fault in a sense. It's this, I think I've explained this to the board, that this program we have now called My Excel kind of links our budget to our actual Cassell program, which is where all the accounts are. And in the past, I don't think anybody was doing a great job of going back and actually looking at the real numbers that were put in the budget in 2017 for the 2019 budget. Now it's linked, so whatever it says there is actually what was spent that year. So I think that's part of the reason behind that. It's making the budgeting part a little bit easier that way.
Nick, can I ask a question? quick?
Yeah.
I think, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but the things like the phone account and IT,
Yep.
I think those numbers are basically just generic in that we look at, like, the police department has more computers than anybody else,
Yep.
so they get a higher so when not all of those costs that show up in the fire budget or in the police, that doesn't necessarily mean that department spent those dollars. That's
But-
just how we're assigning them,
Right.
correct?
And, yeah, no, they're not spending anything, it's just, and part of the IT budget has gone up, obviously, because RMM now is taking over all the the IT stuff. So, yeah, but what we're doing now is, I think, looking more at what was actually spent in the last couple of years. There's a large spreadsheet that Chuck had put together for all the IT budgets, and we need to get that updated, but for now, I think we're pretty close.
Anything else you want to add, Jake, or?
I don't think so, no.
Alrighty. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, we will move on. Down to item I, communications. Any communications? Any new business? Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that motion. Got a motion by Stott, second by Streeter to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thanks, everybody, for coming.